Hello and welcome to this week's edition of TRP News. I'm James Andre and thank you for joining me. Hope you had a great 4th of July weekend, and I'm glad to see you back here with me once again. And there's a lot to go over. A few things have happened in the past couple of weeks. Following the killing of 9 black people in a South Carolina church by a white man, focus on Confederate flag flying at the state's capital was intensified. Many see the flag as a symbol of racial animus and antagonism. Now, many white politicians evolved from defending the flag as part of history to saying that times may have changed and it may be time for it to come down. While many hedged with talk of process and legislation, passing laws to enable the removal of the Confederate flag from the state capitol, activist Bree Newsom ascended the flagpole and cut down the flag. Although the flag went back up shortly after, the act of civil disobedience may have been the political boost that was needed for lawmakers to take action. Governor Haley changed positions and called for legislation allowing for the flag's removal. And last week, the South Carolina Senate voted 37-3 to remove the flag. Last Friday, July 10th, the flag was removed from the Capitol grounds. The NAACP subsequently voted to end its boycott of South Carolina that had been in place for 15 years. The NCAA, the college sports organization, also indicated that it would be willing to reconsider its moratorium on certain games, certain sporting events being held in the state. So a couple of weeks ago, we took 9 huge steps backwards in that South Carolina church. And we took a small step forward last week in South Carolina by having the Confederate flag removed. So those symbols are important and need to be acknowledged, but most important is that we are not satisfied with only symbols. So one flag came down, it's time for other flags to be raised, and those are the flags of respect, equal treatment, and equal opportunity. And then we will really have something to celebrate. So also in the news in the past week, the BP, British Petroleum, on July 2nd reached a settlement on the damage from the Deepwater Horizon drilling accident in the Gulf of Mexico. The $18.7 billion settlement was reached with 5 states and includes payment for penalties under the Clean Water Act, environmental damages, and economic losses. New Orleans is slated to get $45 million that will be used for resilience initiatives, including water management and coastal and ecosystem restoration. Texas said it would get $750 million to reinvest in the Gulf community and reinvigorate the economic and environmental health of the region. In the spring and summer of 2010, oil gushed from the Macondo well for nearly 3 months. More than 3 million barrels of Louisiana light crude fouled beaches and wetlands from Texas to Florida. Hundreds of tar balls still dot the Louisiana coast, and BP crews still work to clean up the tar. Louisiana was already losing land at an alarming rate, according to scientists, and they confirmed that the oil spill accelerated the pace. And what happens is the oil kills off the plants and animal lives that is retaining soil along the coast, and once that dies, it's just an acceleration of erosion from the rivers into the Gulf of Mexico. Not only an incursion of sediment, but also fresh water, so is pushed further into the Gulf. So BP's Senior Vice President Jeff Morrill says the signs are good for a healthy Gulf, however. Quote, "There is nothing to suggest other than that the Gulf is a resilient body of water that has bounced back strongly." What exactly strongly means? Well, I guess it's open to interpretation. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, Shell Oil is moving ahead with a plan to drill in the Chukchi Sea near Alaska with a 400 and a 500-foot long oil rigs, 30 support vessels, and 7 aircraft. There's been some controversy because, as you probably know, Alaska is not the most hospitable environment, and so there's concerns about destruction to the ecosystem, and not only that, but Shell's ability to properly and effectively control an operation under those conditions. Shell has already invested $7 billion in the plan, which was tried once before in 2012 and failed, and it ended in several rescue operations to get stranded crew out of the sea. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service informed Shell that it could not bore 2 wells into the floor in the Chukchi Sea simultaneously as planned. Shell had selected 2 drill sites a little less than 9 miles apart, but regulations require at least 15 miles between active drilling sites, and that's largely due to protect the sea life there. For example, seals and that sort of thing react to the sound of constant drilling into the Earth's crust. So some are calling the drilling effort inadequately supported and poorly planned. And it is a certainty that oil companies are venturing into tougher and tougher areas looking to exploit every possible source of oil. The other certainty is that exploration efforts have expanded, but the safety and containment technology is still largely unevolved and of limited effectiveness. So we're still seeing the booms, we're still seeing, which is basically amounts to paper towel. That is the since the 50s, I guess, and before, that is the standard method. There's no advanced technology. We heard when this Deepwater Horizon was going on, we heard a lot about people designing special ships and special devices, and now, of course, we hear very little about that. And of course, even at the time, the oil companies, in particular BP, showed little interest in pursuing any of these technologies. And I'm sure some of them were crackpot, but others may have had sound ideas behind them that could have been developed. But certainly, we haven't seen them being developed yet. So while President Obama has taken action to protect large swaths of ocean from degradation from industry, more still needs to be done. Improved regulations on where and when companies can drill and what kind of equipment is required, those are needed. Stricter regulations and mandated improvements in safety, containment, and recovery equipment are needed. So if there is a spill, we have to be able to recover the oil and minimize environmental damage. And not only that, the safety of the people who are running these operations has been a concern as well. As you know, 12 people died in the Deepwater Horizon accident. So now more than ever, as resources become more difficult to exploit and the risk of mishap increases, we need those stronger regulations. We need to have oversight on these types of operations that can produce billions and billions and billions of dollars of destruction and disruption. I mean, we're fighting terrorists who can take out a couple of hundred or a couple thousand people, but here we have an oil exploitation operation that literally almost destroyed a major body of water, and now we have another exploration operation beginning in the Chukchi Sea near Alaska that has potential for severe consequences as well. So be on top of your representatives. This is a national matter, and it's particularly for any of you who are in Alaska or near Alaska, this is a local matter for you. So we need to keep our eyes on this. And also this week we have an update on Islamic State. A lot going on in the world of the Levant. This week, satellite and propaganda images out showing the bloody aftermath of the taking of Tikrit by the Islamic State last year. An estimated 770 Iraqi soldiers were gathered up and slaughtered en masse. Images that are now added to the extremely bloody and extensive library being built by the Islamic State showed the supposed actions from what we've seen from their propaganda and from the satellite images of the slaughter. In Kosovo, tens of thousands of people in Kosovo were without water after the authorities shut it off following the appearance of IS members in videos warning of an attack on the country's drinking water. 5 men have been arrested in connection to the suspected plot. Water samples are being tested, but initial results do not show poison. In Iraq, the country's oil production hit an all-time high at 4.1 million barrels of oil per day in June. The Islamic State continues to commandeer many of Iraq's oil rigs, controlling about 10% of Iraq's oil fields, selling the oil they produce on the black market for a discount. With the Islamic State stealing oil production and the low price of oil, Iraq is planning to cut its budget and cut oil production later this year. In Cairo, Egypt, the Islamic State claimed responsibility for a blast outside of the Italian consulate. The remotely detonated bomb was left under a car and killed at least one and injured several others. In Afghanistan, intelligence officials say a U.S. drone strike killed a top leader of a local Islamic State affiliate, along with more than 30 other terrorists. A spokesman for U.S. Forces Afghanistan confirmed an airstrike was carried out in the area, but refused to confirm the death of the IS leader. In Britain, David Cameron is slated to announce a sharp increase in SAS operations, drone missions, and RAF strikes on militant forces in Iraq and Syria. RAF Tornadoes and unarmed Reaper drones have flown more than 1,000 missions in Iraq and Syria and struck more than 300 targets in Iraq since September as part of a U.S.-led coalition. In Russia, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that 2,000 Russian nationals are currently fighting in Syria or Iraq. In June, the country's Security Council chief, Nikolai Patrushev, said that there was no possibility of stemming the tide of fighters. Those are people leaving Russia to go fight with ISIS, the Islamic State, join them in the fight in various countries. And if you look at the map, the countries these people are now involved in and active in, it's really astounding the area they're covering. Russian-speaking Islamic State militants have put out their own messages for some time. But in recent weeks, a new Russian language wing, Firat Media, has emerged. Through Firat, the militant group declared establishment of a province in the North Caucasus, which is inside the Russian Federation itself. So they're claiming territory within Russia. They're claiming territory in various other countries and areas around the world. The Brookings Institute in late 2014 estimated that there were over 46,000 accounts with over 1,000 followers being used by Islamic State supporters. So 46,000 accounts with over 1,000 people each. While IS does struggle to maintain physical control over many areas, it does have widespread influence. The number of countries the Islamic State operates in and claims territory in is large and growing. With thousands of the disaffected and fanatical worldwide ripe for recruitment, and a pool of over 50 million displaced people worldwide producing more each day, it will take a significant effort on many fronts to stem the tide of the Islamic State. This is an ongoing issue. I've talked to you a little bit before about the migrant crisis, the displaced people who have no homes, nowhere to go, no resources. Over 50 to 60 million in the world today. And what happens? These people have no home, no resources, no friends. They get shuffled around to refugee camp, to holding center, and you know, how does fighting for a new land, a new state, based on God, not sound attractive to some of these people. So that's what happens. That's where a lot of these people are coming from, fleeing other conflicts, or they're disaffected or angry because of conflicts or what has happened to them, or they just are simply disaffected, have nothing else to live for, and so they devote their lives to this organization. So until we start dealing with the root causes of these issues, we are going to have a problem with these people, and they are violent, they are bloody, they are intolerant, and vicious. So, there's images of them shooting people, scores of people, and then just dumping them in a river. So, they don't care what's happening. They don't care what they do to the people, the psychology. They want their image to be bloodthirsty, and they will poison a river in order to reinforce that image. So, without significant reforms in areas like migration and economic opportunity and fairness, we will be fighting a long uphill battle. And finally, right now in the news, negotiations in Vienna over the Iran nuclear program and the relief of sanctions by the P5+1, the P5 being the UN Security Council, +1 being Germany, who have sanctions. The United States has sanctions, Europe has sanctions being pressed against Iran for various reasons, including their nuclear research operation. So in Vienna, diplomats negotiating an agreement with Iran for sanctions relief and oversight of its nuclear research programs indicated that a final deal was close. This is in the past few days. There's been word coming out that they're close, there's just a few more points. They're not easy points, but the deal is basically written. So officials even floated the possibility Sunday that there would be a deal reached before European officials said there was no way the negotiations can continue if a deal isn't reached by Monday night. So that appears to be the current objective is Monday night. The rest of the Security Council, the Europeans, really have had it up to here. The White House has signaled that they may consider other options in things like rolling over current sanctions and continuing negotiations, or even just walking away. They say that they're willing to walk away from these negotiations if Iran does not come to a reasonable agreement. So U.S. officials say that they are not certain whether Iran's most powerful political figure, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, fully supports his negotiators. On Saturday, Mr. Khamenei said his country would maintain its opposition to the world's great arrogant power, referring to the United States. Iranian and Western officials have said in recent days that most of the text of an agreement had been agreed upon. So once again, they say it's written. It's just a matter of coming to terms and accepting them. I don't know. I don't think Iran, personally, I don't think Iran has much negotiating room. And I think at this point it's a lot of posturing. As I told you before, I didn't think we'd hit the June 30th deadline. I told you this months ago that the June 30th deadline would be exceeded. And I said that it would be the second week of July that we actually have a deal. So, it seems like we may be on track. Although Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell said, I think it's going to be a very hard sell if it's completed in Congress. We already know it's going to leave Iran as a threshold nuclear state, which is a good point. The whole point of this is to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Well, a lot of the objective of the current negotiations is to prevent them from developing a nuclear weapon too quickly. So the breakout time, as I've told you before weeks ago, that's one of the major concerns. They want it to be over a year. Breakout meaning the time where the research has reached and the capability, the technical capability has reached such a level that they can develop a nuclear weapon. So right now it's currently estimated to be 2 or 3 months, and the P5+1 want to push that back to a year at least. Senator Ben Cardin, the senior Democrat on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, said there is no trust when it comes to Iran. Of course, as I've mentioned here before, one of the main reasons for distrust with Iran is past treatment of Iran by the United States and Britain. So military, political, and administrative interference are all part of the complicated history. So it's not just Iran who can't be trusted, really it's the rest of us either who can't be trusted when it comes to Iran, and we've demonstrated it. So all that information is widely available. I'm sure you could easily look it up. So while there are many issues between the P5+1 and Iran, we may have a deal in the next few days. So I predicted second week of July, and I said that it definitely would not happen around the 4th of July because of the Independence Day and the appearance of it. So I think if we have a deal by Tuesday, technically I'll be in the window. That'll be the 14th, which is the end of the second week. As I said, I can't see any upside to Iran walking away from this point. It's better to promise and agree now and ask for forgiveness later. They don't really gain anything by walking away. And if these things are so egregious, then really doesn't it demonstrate that they have ulterior motives that they're not expressing, which I actually have no doubt. If you look into the history of Iran and you look at the history of the relationship, as I alluded to with the United States and Great Britain, it's almost a certainty that they actually do want to develop a nuclear weapon, and especially the animus between Iran and Israel. So you know, there's a lot that goes into this, a lot that has happened to that country over the years, and so I have no doubt that that's actually the case. Personally, I can understand where they're coming from, but my philosophy is no one builds any more nuclear weapons. That just happens to be my belief. I don't care what the situation or circumstances are. It's been hard enough to get rid of the ones we have. We don't need anyone manufacturing any more. Not only that, it's just an accident waiting to happen. The more people who have them, the more likely something is going to go wrong. So, as I said, I can't see any upside from them walking away, so I say, you know, it might not happen today, Monday, but it's very likely that it will happen Monday night or Tuesday. If not, I predict if it was me, I'd be walking away. I mean, enough's enough. You guys can suffer with these sanctions for a little bit longer. As a matter of fact, why don't we come up with a few more? So I see the pressure coming down and the Khomeini going along with the plan. So any possible deal, however, has to make it through Congress. So that's it for this week. I want to thank you once again for joining me. You want to contact me or you have comments or criticism, feel free to do it through the contact information below in the video, the email, or you can catch us on Facebook or Twitter, of course, and on our website, therationalprogressive.com, if you want to support us with some page views and or comment on any of the stories there, some of which are not covered in this video. So thank you once again, and we look forward to seeing you next week.